At Talus, we know cybersecurity can be tough and you can't protect everything, but with Talus, you can secure what matters most. With Talus industry-leading platforms, you can protect critical applications, data, and identities, anywhere and at scale with the highest ROI. That's why the most trusted brands and largest banks, retailers, and healthcare companies in the world rely on Talus to protect what matters most. Applications, data, and identities. That's Talus, T-H-A-L-E-S. Learn more at talusgroup.com/cyber.
You are tuned in to the FowlWeather Podcast, the forecast to your next successful hunt. Coming to you from the home office, Jacks Reef, New York.
As duck hunters, we have an amazing history of conservation. We worked to grow ducks from nothing. In the Dust Bowl, it all started. Duck hunters had a recognition that duck habitat in the soil of this country was in trouble. So we came together to protect what we love. We saved the ducks and the wild places that ducks live. We respected these animals, and they went from field to table. We grew the seed of conservation that we sowed, and we ate what we grew. This episode is about respect for the ducks as table fare, as food, and respect for the culture of duck hunting. This episode is about respect for ducks as ducks. This is Duck Hunting Ethics 101. Nearly on the eve of the 1st of October, Orion greets me and the dawn. Winter is on its way. We tackle it head on, in an age when fowl should be respected, revered, and honored more than ever. Join us for the thoughts on Duck Country USA and respect for all the old hen mallards out there. All today, coming at you, harvested, cooked, and served the FowlWeather way. No fanfare this week, folks. At the front end this week, we want to jump right into it. Y'all know where to find us by now, so please share this story and episode with family and friends, especially those that need to hear this message. We appreciate y'all very, very much. It is not by chance that those mallards dropped into your hole. They shot by high, and you hit 'em hard. 3 of you on the calls, Dad, his friend, and youngest son, just starting to duck hunt. The 2 guys hit the calls the hardest. They disappear in the distant trees, only to reappear again, their wingtips slow as they pass the hole. But they aren't convinced yet. Hug the trees and hit 'em again. This time they pitch hard left, doing a U-turn. The calls go silent other than a little feeding chatter. The dad watches Bo, the black lab, on the stand to tell him where the ducks are at. As they pass directly over the hole, the dad hits them one more time after they pass. They swing hard, then cup. They hang, gliding into the hole. Now feet down, get 'em. Guns sound, feathers shudder, bills and heads are split. And 3 greenheads and a hen lay dead in the hole. Back! Bo goes and does his work. Not the greatest shooting, but everyone is happy. Dad picked up 1 of that 6-pack that committed. The friend got 2, and the young boy banged away 3 shots on uneven, growing, gangly feet and frame and shot the hen. Nobody says anything about the hen. That is a lesson for another day. The "we don't shoot hens if we can help it" lesson is for another day. Now is for celebrating the day, our friendship, our family, and the ducks. The scene repeats itself throughout the morning, like it does in a different setting all across duck country each and every year. The stage may be different. It may be a prairie pothole hunt, a Nebraska cornfield, an impoundment in North Carolina, a tidal marsh in Oregon, a meandering Montana or Colorado River, or Gulf Coast flat. But the result is the same time spent in the wilds of a great country, in a landscape we worked so hard to preserve for generations. Good friends and family by our side, including the dog, a well-oiled machine that included practicing duck calling and ensuring skilled shooting for a clean shot. And at the end of it all, great table fare. But we must remember, it is not by chance that those mallards dropped into that hole. You had something to do with it, and the duck did a little work too. Let's just follow that hen, and let's do it from this point on in the season. Right now, she is still recovering from having a brood of ducklings in the woods of northern Minnesota. We're going to go with a place you don't think about as duck country is much, but mallards kind of breed everywhere. And yes, they breed in the North Minnesota lakes. So she is still recovering from tending to her brood for the season. This is a critical time for her to build back up reserves. She's also still molting in her breeding plumage, and of course, not as showy as old greenhead, but nonetheless, it takes an immense amount of protein to produce feathers. So she hangs with her brood even as they start to fly for a bit, but slowly, and one by one, they get itchy and start to separate. She stayed in her little emergent marsh bay and also made flights to a warm, shallow water corner of a beaver pond for weeks to feed heavily on bugs for the protein. But she ain't staying in the North Country because it's going to get too cold and she knows it's going to freeze. So she makes an initial move out into a more productive landscape. And so she makes an evening flight on a full moon to the southern reaches of the Glacial Lakes region that stretches across west central Minnesota, just east of the prairies. She stops just south of a little place called Wilmar, Minnesota, on a pothole wetland. She jumps back and forth from a weed-filled bay on Lake Wakanda to a soybean field with a puddle that hasn't been drained. Up the movements a bit to find better food resources, but it is hunting season now, and guns are blazing. She's been through this before, so she kind of holes up in a little cove with about 20 or so other mallards, doing consistent daily and safe flights. October is warm, and no need to fly south, but she gets bumped one too many times by gunfire and makes a local move not too far, but more into open farm country. It is now November, and she's made several small movements, but only to about the Iowa border. Corn harvest is nearly complete, and there are also many options on the landscape. Food is abundant. She fattens up and waits for the next cold front. It is also pairing season as well, and drakes are looking good. Many vie for her attention, and she doesn't take too long to find a mate because it is better to be paired than not. He gets shot a couple days later when they make a short move to Iowa. She eyes up the crowd and pairs again within 24 hours. Snowflakes now fly once in a while, but nothing to worry about yet. It's a warm fall. Late November hits. She still has her new drake, and the temperature plummets to below freezing for 3 days straight, and a 6-inch snow comes along. Both fat, and after the storm, on a broken cloud day, they make the big jump. Pretty much right over Iowa to Grand Pass Waterfowl Conservation Area in Missouri. She's been there before and finds the refuge roost quickly. They make all the right moves all week between the refuge to the nearby hunt club. But on Saturday, her mate is lost and she is alone again. Once again, she surveys the scene and pairs within 24 hours because it's better to be paired than not. Twice the eyes and twice the capacity to find food patches. This mate sticks, and not until the second week of January are they forced to go any farther south. But the weather deteriorates in Missouri, the wetlands are frozen, the river high and raging, full of ice chunks, a good snow covers the fields for days, and it is just finally too many days in a row, and they land next around the St. Francis River Basin in Arkansas. This will be the final stop. She knows the area well. They feed in moist soil at night, and go into a refuge location in the woods during the day. This is the routine. The 1st of February comes, and the guns are silent. They've made it, but not yet. It's a long haul to produce ducklings, something that millions of years of evolution has shaped. You see, each move has been selected for by millions of years of those that live and those that die. If you live, you carry that genetic code to the next generation. She is literally programmed by time how to survive and reproduce. Luckily, the moist soil is on a hunt club that knows not to pull all the boards right after season, and her and her mate, with the gun silent, spend more time in the moist soil in nearby Willow Hole. Now again, they're building up fat. After winter months of just maintaining or even losing a little weight, they again build up fat for the flight north. A south wind comes, and they make it up the Mississippi River to Crab Orchard National Wildlife Refuge before they already hit a wall of bad conditions, a late spring. A week later, though, a thaw comes, and they make the jump to southern Wisconsin right on the ice line. The food is slim now. No new seeds have been produced for the year, and most bugs still aren't out. It is slim pickings. But they are on reserves of fat from the moist soil unit many miles away, and when the next thaw comes, she makes another jump to mid-Wisconsin before hitting the snow line again with her mate. Here they sit for many weeks, but the fields in the area have puddles. This water warms, worms and insects come out of the soil, and she is able to get protein and some waste grain along with some vegetation from the emergent marshes of the lake nearby. A few kernels of wild rice are left too, but not many. But that's it. It's time to go again. Late March and the thaw is happening once again. They jump right to the Minnesota lake she hatched ducklings on the past 2 years and frozen like a rock other than the little outlet. But as always happens with a growing sun, the thaw comes and it comes quickly enough. Now May. They move to a more secluded pocket of the lake and she begins laying eggs at about 9 a.m. each morning. She wanders off from her mate to lay an egg in a simple bowl in the grass, next to a down log in the woods from the side of the lake. During the day, she eats insects from the shallows and breeds with her mate, and then each morning she does it all again until her clutch is at 12 eggs. Down feathers is slowly pulled from her belly for the eggs' protection and to keep them warm. This also enables her to have a brood patch, a bare belly, so that heat can be transferred directly from her body to the eggs. Now, during this egg-laying time, she is vulnerable to predators because she has to sit on the nest for about 1 hour each day during laying, but then once she starts to incubate, she sits on the ground for about 28 days, only taking 2 short incubation breaks each day to get water and feed quickly. Now, she is losing weight as well, spending that precious fat level down that she gained in winter migration and spring, all contributing to the potential success of this clutch. Oh, but disaster. She's pushed off the nest by a raccoon. The past 6 months are all for nothing, and all 12 eggs are gone. She relocates with her mate, spending about 2 weeks building up lipid reserves for egg laying. This time, she picks the rose garden of a cottage on the lake. You see, she has a bit of game farm mallard infused in her genes. She's about 15% game farm and 85% wild mallard. And now, this is a bit of speculation, but also supported by ongoing research in my lab and that of Dr. Phil Levretsky and others. It appears that some hybrid mallards may be just a bit more tolerant of humans. Maybe they have just enough game farm to succeed sometimes. Of course, when you continue to dump game farm genetics into the mallard population, at some point the scale tips and you're just going to turn into a dumpster fire that can't survive the wilds of these lands at all. But a little game farming might not be so bad. So her brain, from genetic code of 400 years in captivity from the game farm ancestor in her, makes her comfy enough around the cottage door, opening and closing on weekends. She sits behind that bush, never seen. And she does it all over again. Re-nesting this time, she only has enough energy to lay 8 eggs, and she sits on them for 28 days until they hatch successfully. Now, understand in total, she has already been at this for 68 days, or almost 19% of the year. 12 days to lay the first clutch, plus 6 days of incubation before the nest being predated, plus 14 days to recover before re-nesting, plus 8 days to lay the current clutch, plus 28 days to incubate. And now she has to take care of 8 little fuzzballs for about 55 days until they fledge. All in combination, that is 1/3 of the year she spent on making more ducks. And her mate, he left for southern Manitoba to molt, right? Once it hit about day 12 of incubation, the male bails. They don't stick around to help out with the clutch, so it's all on mom. The ducklings, led by mom, feed along the shoreline on bugs growing. She loses one of these ducklings to a northern pike and another one to who knows what. Ducklings die a lot. So she has 6 beautiful mallard ducks that fledge and become part of the fall flight. And each of those ducklings will also have their own unique story, just like we told here. So do the shovelers, the teals, the gadwall, the bluebill, the snow goose, the speck, the bufflehead, and the goldeneye, the scoter, and the Canada goose. Each and every species of duck, goose, or swan have a story, and each individual bird you see this coming fall has a story of life and death in our world. The hen, the star of our story, does her thing moving south all over again, just like we started this episode. And then, in a flood, the landscape changes, and she makes one bad move. And so here we are today with Dad, his friend, and the young new duck hunter walks out into the hole, too excited to let Bo the black lab pick up his duck, and he holds up our hen mallard, the star of the story, by the neck. Dad is grabbing the last greenhead from Bo and getting him on the dog stand. He looks over to the young, new duck hunter. Their eyes meet, and the smiles say it all. But our story is not done with the hunt. I'm your host, Dr. Mike, coming to you from the home office in Jack's Reef. Last weekend, we pulled 4 plump, fully plucked mallards from the freezer that we had stored from our hunt in North Dakota last year, and we put them on the charcoal grill. My neighbor stopped over when I mentioned that the duck grill had been fired up. He knew what type of treat was coming. The coals didn't get as hot as needed, or maybe it's because I put more. I usually only put 2 ducks on, but putting 4 on, maybe that's what it was. They didn't get as hot as needed, and the 22 minutes typical to get these done didn't quite get it done. But there were good cuts from the top of the breast, and the legs were pretty well done. You know, sometimes you don't always hit all the buttons. But we watched some football, talked hunting, talked about dogs that are with us today and dogs that have passed. We had a few beers, and we ate duck. We ate duck done right. Shot in North Dakota, and that neighbor was on that trip. We plucked and packaged those ducks together, kept a wing on for legal ID, and traveled them back to Jack's Reef country to be eaten last week. The freezer's getting thin, and the new deer burger, stew meat, steaks, and backstraps will soon be backfilling the freezer. The meat from last year will move to the front, and the new meat will be set to the back, probably starting to be dug into maybe by February. There's always a bit of reserve for us. The ducks from last year are just about gone. We have some shirky cuts left and some whole ducks, but mostly gone. All the gumbo meat got eaten last winter, and the kebab meat was used during summer gatherings on the farm porch.
Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
Nothing goes to waste at the farm. We live by the idea that you eat what you grow because you grow what you sow. It is simple, my friends. When this entire duck conservation project endeavor started, it was lean, ducks were few, food was scarce, and the balance of life was fragile. Of course, times have changed, and pretty much as you would like, all sorts of everything is at your fingertips nowadays, daily. But let me dig into it right here. To shoot ducks and not eat them, and then go buy steak at the store is pretty gross, period. I'm not anti-steak. I'm anti-throwing your ducks and geese in the trash. Because, well, that basically makes you trash. If you still think the life of a mallard is all for sport after hearing that struggle of life and death on this planet from that hen mallard, if you think that a life of a mallard is all for sport after all the conservation work we've put into making that happen, you, my friend, are trash. It is so much more, and it can be so much more. Your healing can happen. Ducks are not just targets. That is not the North American model of wildlife conservation. Ducks are part of our culture. Ducks are food, and ducks are life. Duck hunting culture is about the alarm, the dog, the gun, the decoys, the duck call, and the calling itself. Duck hunting culture is hearing the marsh come alive in God's country. The trees looming above you as you move through the dark of night. Ducks are not just targets. This is not who we are. This is not duck hunting culture. Ducks are life beyond our own lives. Ducks are life that brings life to us. Through ducks, hey, we truly live. Duck hunting culture is spending time with friends shooting in the summer because you respect a clean killing shot in December. It has been a long time since I shot my first duck, but I do know this. It was a hen mallard, and I shot her with about a quarter of a box left of 2 boxes that my old man had given me that day. All he did was congratulate me, and I can simply remember that hen mallard on the bank of that river, legs up, legs kicking. I was proud. But what I do not remember was eating that duck. It was not until later in my life that I realized that we probably threw a lot of meat out at the end of the year. Not because Dad was ever an evil beast that didn't like wild game or just shot stuff for fun, for sport, but because we didn't prioritize wild game as part of the kitchen. Of course, we ate a lot of duck, goose, venison, and turkey. And as a kid, before I was 15, I perfected squirrel pot pie. But we still bought buffalo wings and pizza on a Friday instead of gathering in the kitchen and doing the critters we shot right. What is the point I'm trying to make? We've worked way too hard to keep these amazing wild animals with us to not also make them part of an amazing meal with family and friends. Will everyone eat it? No, and we shouldn't try to force wild game onto others. But we should do everything we can to make these amazing animals that we pursue into the best meal possible. If you enjoy everything noted in this entire episode, this entire story, you revere and honor the mallard and other game animals, but you don't like eating them, look to ways to donate them to others or find ways to make them into sausage or something, some other culinary concoction that makes them taste away so you can eat them. But do not throw them out. Hey, wild turkey legs suck. We've tried them a bunch of ways, but we finally came up with it, and we worked hard to get it done because we respect the hunt of wild turkeys, and we respect that animal. We made roasted red pepper bacon turkey burgers. It's kind of a sausage recipe, but you press them into burgers, right? 4 burgers per Ziploc bag with wax paper in between. And it's kind of a fun process with family, with kids. You debone the meat from the leg. Don't even worry too much about the silver skin. It gets ground up for the most part. Most of the meat is in that, upper leg or thigh area, but you can get some from the lower section. There's a lot of tendons and they're a pain, but with a good fillet knife, it can be done. From 6 turkey legs, you should get about 5 pounds of meat. Grind it with 1 pound of thick cut, kind of super fatty maple bacon, and generously mix it with 3 tablespoons of salt, 5 teaspoons of black pepper, 6 cloves of crushed garlic, 20 fresh sage leaves, and 6 teaspoons of fresh grated ginger. Go ahead and olive oil and salt 3 red peppers, kind of de-seeded, and cut the stems off and split them and lightly grill them on both sides until they're roasted. Grind the peppers and generously mix and then run it all through the grinder one more time to incorporate everything properly. Press into burgers and freeze for later. We usually eat a few right away, and oh man, were they spectacular. And this gets me to the idea that every duck deserves to be plucked. It's a comment that a friend of mine made to me in South Dakota and taught to me many moons ago. And it wasn't that you could or should fully pluck every duck or goose, but that they deserve it. We've all heard or believed the comments like, turkey legs aren't worth eating, or there really isn't any more meat on a duck than the breast. The comment is that it is a waste of time to bother, and that, in my opinion, is just disrespecting the animal and the culture of hunting. Of course, turkey legs suck to clean and cook, but it makes good food when done right. And of course, most of the meat on a duck is in the breast, but the whole duck has many benefits other than the additional meat. It is a culinary choice because the way a whole duck roasts with all the skin on is far superior to skinless breasts. Of course, we do breast out ducks in early season when they still have pin feathers, right? It wouldn't work cooking-wise, but to throw out that white fat from nature, from a natural wetland that a duck has acquired on its skin, or the yellow fat in skin from a mallard that's been on corn, is just a giant culinary miss. And here's the deal. If you have friends that don't eat turkey legs or other parts of the duck, ask for them. I get looked down a bit for asking for turkey legs, but we just stockpiled a bunch of those burgers in the freezer, wrapped enough to keep them for later and have lots of great meals. Don't have time to clean your ducks right away? Hang them out of the sun in a cool and dry place for up to 48 hours. Nearly all of our ducks get cleaned days later. Hung in the barn in the shade, guts in, but just don't forget about them and make the time to clean them. The meat will be more tender as well for cooking later. Anyhow, we do have to put in the legal caveat here that we are not telling you that you must eat the ducks that you shoot, and we also never suggest eating any wild game that you would consider unhealthy in any way. Up next,
the Farmland
hurricane
Group
season.
is your one-stop shop
season,
for real
so
estate
please
brokerage,
stick with
consulting,
us.
management, lending, and appraisal across Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri, Louisiana, Georgia, Tennessee, and growing. Contact them today at farmlg.com. Hey, I'm telling you, do not hesitate because these folks are busy buying, selling, and providing consulting and management strategies that build value into your portfolio and your land. So get in the queue today. Get on their radar. Get on their books. Man, y'all won't be disappointed. Contact the Farmland Group today at farmlg.com. That's farmlg.com. How many days have you had empty skies over the duck blind? Your property can be more with wildlife strategies. It is no secret that hiring a consultant, an expert in managing water, woods, and fields, an expert in duck food, an expert in hunting pressure management, hiring a consultant yields better habitat for the critters you chase. Less empty skies, more quality days of field, more smiles for miles with family and friends. If that's your game and goal, contact Ryan Delaney at ryan@farmlg.com for a site visit. And hey, here's the deal. I'm filled up for summer 2025 with clients up north, but if our northern friends have a property in need of some love, contact me at Dr. Mike at FowlWeather.co for a summer 2026 site visit. And we are back. So the hurricane season has gotten really active, not like anyone on continental North America would have noticed, though, because they all continue to spin out into the ocean. It's all part of the consistent pattern that I called a meteorological death ridge last week that is over the northeast U.S. and eastern Canada. A stagnant high-pressure system that just keeps demolishing anything remotely humid, wet, and low pressure that comes near it. And now, keep your eyes on the Hurricane Center updates if you are North or South Carolina or anywhere along the Atlantic coast, but it really looks like Hurricane Humberto, that is out in the middle of the Atlantic, is going to drag tropical system number 9 into the Atlantic with it. Of course, this could change, and number 9 could spin into the southeast U.S. coast, bringing tropical level rains, then split from Humberto and become a hurricane itself. But the most recent Euromodel is showing the death ridge and Humberto spreading number 9 out and having it also spin out into the Atlantic. Of course, these types of systems are very unpredictable. So again, keep an eye at the Hurricane Center for regular updates if you are a part of coastal Atlantic, USA, and Canada. Last today, we have an October duck weather update. So please stick with us. Beckman Game Calls has it dialed in. If you want a duck call that is adjustable to your air pressure and sounds like a duck, this is it. I've blown a ton of different calls in my life, but this one is the real deal. Look, we don't endorse just anything. We are only going to put forward a call that works. The Edison by Chris Beckman of Beckman Game Calls, yeah, this beauty sounds like a duck. I only know of one published research paper focused on what makes a duck call sound like a duck. Go look me up, and you will see that colleagues and I have the only paper published in scientific literature about what makes a duck call sound like a duck. For sure, Chris Beckman did his homework, and this call sounds like a duck. This guy knows how to make a duck call, period. But don't just take my word for it. Here's the proof. First, a hen recording, and then the Edison in the big woods of Arkansas. Visit them today at BeckmanGameCalls.com. And last but not least, and the words you don't want to hear, warm and dry for October. The cool weather in September was impressive, but just as impressive was it disappearing and the return of the warmth in October that's coming. Alaska and the Yukon is the exception right now, as we have the tale of two coasts. Recent warm and dry in the east and cool and damp in the west. Siberia is off to a jump start for snow cover, so if you are a winter weather enthusiast, polar vortex enthusiast, this will get you going, because if this continues, this would produce a weak polar vortex, or the opportunity for cold air to pour out of the Arctic and into eastern North America during winter. Of course, these effects are mostly felt like late December, early January, and into the rest of the season, if it's going to happen. But right now, the 30-day from the best of the best long-term forecasters is calling for warm, 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 especially for the mid-continent, more normal temps for the east, and some blazing hot in the Rockies and west of that. The only bright spot is a bit of cooler temps than normal predicted in some spots in Alaska. The good news is that the country that will not be named and the area that they own, called Siberia, will be below normal temps, potentially keeping that snow machine going that will help set up a persistent cold high-pressure system east of the Ural Mountains and create cooler temps for us in late December and January over the prairies and Mississippi and Atlantic flyways. But too early to tell yet. So sorry, lads and ladies in the marsh. October is going to be dry and warm. That machine is going to keep running for much of North America throughout October. But next week, we kick off with our first of many weekly duck migration forecasts, so please join us. Also, we ask that you share and listen to this episode with all your duck hunting friends and listen to it again. Discuss and debate the content. We at the FowlWeather Podcast like the hunter conservationist duck eating message, and we hope you did as well. Thanks for listening, and as always, may your skies be filled and shoot straight, my friends.